Well, hello. My name is Yvonne Donaldson, and it's my distinct pleasure and honor to be speaking with Elisabeth Westermann today and bringing information forward about her work called Dao Tha Singing Codes. And Elisabeth, would you please tell us about who you are and how did you come to find the sound codes?
Well, I'm from German origin, and you will probably hear that pretty soon when you hear my accent. So I grew up in Germany, and I grew up in a family that was very connected to music in general, especially classical music. And ever since I was a child, I had this feeling that somehow something special would come through me at a certain time of my life, but I didn't know anything about what it would be. And as I grew older and I had my experiences with therapy and body work and singing and giving singing lessons and all of these things, somehow at a certain point everything came together. And I got introduced to somebody who knew about a very ancient system of healing in the actually gypsy background that was called I think sound keys healing. And she sang to me one of these codes. By that time it was called keys. And then she said to me, I feel that this is part of your life, and you have done this before in a former lifetime. So just go back to your own personal Akashic records and download those things. And I was like, what? But then it was very easy, very simple. I just sat down and closed my eyes and asked for this information to be given to me, and so it came to me.
Uh-huh.
So the whole thing started.
And about how long ago was that?
Oh, I think that was around 2005, 2006. And then I had connections to some medical doctors who said, oh, this might be interesting. And they gave me some of their clients, but usually medical doctors who are in the mainstream medicine, they would just give you the clients, or they would recommend these things to clients where they don't know what to do anymore. So I really didn't get a feeling for what these sound codes could really do, because for these people, it was very difficult to really still help them. They were so far away from a healthy condition. Yeah. So I stopped working with it by a certain time, and I started working with specific work with the vertebrae of the spine called Atlas Prophylax, where I was trained to work with the body in a certain way, in a mechanical way, no singing, nothing. And I just stepped back from doing these sound keys or sound codes. And then at a certain point in my life, that was in 2011, I was introduced to a wonderful woman who is doing paintings in a very specific way, using the ancient knowledge of the Kabbalah. And she had specific problems with her back, and especially the neck region and the atlas. And I knew that she needed the help of the Atlas Prophylax, actually. But I didn't have my machine. This work works with a machine where you would do a specific massage on the muscles here. And I didn't have that machine with me. It was in vacation. And so I was standing there asking myself how I could help this lady. And then I could almost hear these beings laugh at me these beings who come with the sound codes and saying to me, you said to us, you want proof. Okay, now you're getting it. Sing. So I sang to this lady, and I found that these sounds that I was making were really working on her atlas, finding its way back to a healthy position. And I was very happy for that lady. And I didn't even understand what had happened. That was in June 2011. And that is when I actually started my work, because I came back and it dawned to me, oh, that is the proof I have been waiting for. Now since I have the tests before and after through being trained as an Atlas Prof in this body of work, Atlas Prophylax, I can prove that these sound codes that I would use can work. And so I started working with it, and I asked the people that came to me, still for Atlas Prophylax actually, do you want me to use the machine, or do you want me to use a light touch and singing? Oh, they were very interested in getting that instead of a massage machine. Yeah. And it worked every time I was using these sound codes for the Atlas. I could really see, feel, sense, and experience the Atlas finding its place back. Plus, I knew with a machine I was manipulating and the Atlas back into a healthy position. And this body that I was working with never had experienced the Atlas at place. So it was like a shock situation for the body. It didn't really understand what had happened. But with the sound codes given, it is information for like the blueprint of the body. So the body decides himself how, when, in which way, and in which capacity, and how quickly it would correct the Atlas. And that was great. So there was no shock. The body was just relaxing into the new situation that was actually the old situation, because we came from, in former times, we came from the Atlas at place. Otherwise, the whole body system wouldn't make sense. There is a socket where the Atlas fits right into. And if it's not there, it's misplaced.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about why the Atlas is an important portal for a healthy body, mind, soul connection?
Well, the Atlas is at a place, it's right here at the base of the skull. It's the first vertebrae of the spine. And it's connecting the head to the body. It's the portal through which or around which every information would go that would be exchanged between the head and the body. And since up until now, the head usually carries the most of the information that is used in the body, this is a very important part of the body. It's just the connection between those two parts. So every nerve, every information tissue that is between the head, that is between the head and the body, would go past or through the Atlas. And when it's misplaced, certainly some of these nerves are either pinched or compromised.
And what kind of symptoms might be associated with an Atlas that's not in a healthy position?
Oh, since everything is going through or around there, it's a lot of different symptoms. There are more common ones, and there are some of them are not so common. So I will go with just the common ones. Of course, all of the difficulties that would have to do with pain in the neck, with headaches, with pain and problems and tension in the jaws, the problems with the lower back, because the lower back corresponds with the upper back, problems in digestive region, problems with in sleeping because of the sympathetic nervous system being out of joint. All of the problems that the little children oftentimes have when they come into school and they can't sit and concentrate, ADHD and those things, KISS syndrome. And then, of course, all of the emotional and mental parts, because as many people don't know, the main emotions also stem from a part of the brain, the limbic system, where we have the feelings of anxiety, of fear, and also of love and compassion. And all of that is stored here, not in the heart region. So all of these can be and oftentimes will be somehow addressed through this misplacement, and will not be totally balanced.
And other than just an intuitive knowing, how would a person know that their atlas is not in a healthy position? How prevalent is this atlas not in position in humans today?
Well, you can know it just by being human, because almost every human being, as far as I know, every human being has the atlas misplaced. So it's a foregone. But then how would you feel it? That is from here to there. If you have problems in your neck, if you tend to have migraines, if you tend to just don't feel that you are present, that you are really here, if you feel that you can't concentrate, if you have conditions like with your digestive system, where you feel that it's something that you just can't grasp, and you can't tell it's this symptom and you can take this medicine and then it's gone. No, it's something that comes and goes, and it's a little weird. And pain that comes and goes. Those things would be symptoms.
Okay. And how do sound codes work to correct that? And why does the body need that correction?
Well, when the atlas is not at place, as I said, since everything that is connecting body and brain would be either going around or past the atlas or through the hole that is in the atlas, that means when it's misplaced, that at least one or two or three of these systems are somehow weakened. That's at least the case. So it makes sense in general to help the body to get into a better shape by having a clear, healthy, and also, I'm looking for a word, a situation that is safe, yeah, for the atlas being in its socket, and then the body having the possibility to reorganize and rearrange every vertebrae and also all of the nerves, yeah, That would be one of the reasons. And then also, when the Atlas is not at place, you would have a very weak situation up here in general, because there is an instability. It is like anything else that is not in its socket. Yeah. You will always have a weak situation, and if you tend to fall, or if you have an accident, or if you are doing a lot of sports, like ball sports, like football especially, or boxing or something like that, you would take the risk every time that you have something that would be coming in this region here or here or here, like a ball, or like a whiplash or anything. You would take the risk that the Atlas would go out more and more and more, and you could even die. When the Atlas is at place, you are much more safe. So even for that, it would make sense to help yourself. Forget about all the spiritual background. That is another story even. Yeah. But this is only hardcore physical. Yeah. I would recommend to every person to have the Atlas, or help the Atlas to correct itself, so it's going back to its socket, so you have a safe situation. And when you fall after that, I have had that experience, you have a totally different experience in falling, because the body is not totally getting out of balance, and you're not getting dizzy usually. It's just boom, and the whole body is like, yeah, and everything is fine again. Yeah. Because there is a stability up here that holds it all.
And how do the sound codes work to help bring it into a healthy situation?
Oh, when you use sound codes, since we are constructed or made of sound, we are vibrating energy, and it's getting more obvious lately for almost everybody that that is a truth. Even though we don't see it and we don't feel it, we are vibrating energy. So if we find the right vibration to inform this vibrating system, it can choose to function in a different way, in a healthy way. And that's what the body would do. So we are not manipulating the Atlas back into place. What we are doing is we are informing the blueprint, and the body says, okay, that sounds interesting. It feels like it could be more healthy, it could be more stable, it could be good for me, let's try it. And since the information is given, how it could be, it's easy for the body to follow that information and correct itself. And it's a very soft process. Usually the person doesn't even realize in the first moment that it has happened. It happened, it realizes, or he or she realizes what happened from the effects that happen right after that. The relief, the release, the feeling of more ease, more softness in all of this tissue here, and how the whole body would grow. Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about how the sound codes are positive and affect cats and dogs, horses, animals?
Yeah, that's very easy to understand, because dogs, cats, other animals, pets, and also horses have the same problem as the humans have. They too have their Atlas misplaced. And you can see that in an elderly dog, because the elderly dogs usually are out of gait. And when you go through the streets and you see people walking their older dogs, like the golden retriever ones, the bigger ones, it's easier to see than the small ones. They usually go like, instead of like this, they are like that. No, how can I show? Like that, and they are turned to one side, and they walk a little bit. You know, it's like a little bit like they would that they're drunk a little bit, and then the hip region is up, and they don't like to wave their tail much more anymore. And when you look at the back is not swinging. It's stiff. And when the Atlas codes are given and the other codes for the vertebrae of the spine, the dog instantaneously walks differently. It walks like a youngster again. And I've seen, especially in America when I was training, we had some dogs come in, and elderly dogs, and they were not able to jump into the car anymore. And then after the treatment, when people were leaving with their dogs, the dogs were jumping into the car, and they rolled. They made a circle again, which they hadn't done for some years. It's amazing. I remember Zoe, and you have even been part of that, seeing Zoe and her mother. Who was one of the most beautiful dogs that I've ever met. Such a sweetheart. And she was so much in pain, and she had so many problems. And when we had worked with her, she jumped into the car, and and her mom, she was so happy. She called us later, and she told us how she's now moving like this again. You know, I'm a happy dog. You know, she was 14 already. And then she lived another 2 or 3 years, and then I saw her again, and she was really getting old. And when she died happily, because it was just, I mean, her life was round. Everything was fine. It's great.
This works with horses as well?
Yeah, with horses, they have a lot of different problematic situations, oftentimes from their upbringing, and people who work with horses a lot, they know that being trained in such an early age already, some of them really have a lot of traumatic experiences. So they need a lot of care also. And there are sound codes for the traumatic situations. There are sound codes for supporting the horse to find back to its own center, to heal heartbreaks, all of these things, to heal shocks. And you will see that the horse not only starts walking in line, which in America they do quite well because they are trained in such an early age that their whole system, which would be usually out of alignment, is forced into an alignment. So you don't see that much this difference as you see in Europe, where they get trained a little later, and you can still see this so-called natural misalignment. Yeah. And when the atlas is at place, the horse finds a totally new way to walk. And when the misalignment was still present and was still there to see, to be able to be seen, it will be gone after that and will never come back. And then when you walk the horse, when you're sitting on the horse and you want them to turn in the right, to the right, they usually have a problem with that more than to the left. And that's because of the specific misplacement of the atlas. And they are having pain turning the head into that direction. And you can even do tests with the turning of the head with dogs and horses. And we have a film on the website where you could see that this turning would change profoundly when the atlas is corrected. It's much more free. Also with the humans, but with the dogs and horses, it's especially nice to see because they just react instantaneously to the codes.
So you've touched on the atlas being misaligned in humans and in these animals. Could you just briefly explain how this came to be? How is it that humans and horses and dogs and cats and are misaligned from birth? How did that come to be?
Well, I can only give you a spiritual reason for that because physically it just doesn't make sense that the misalignment is there. So there is just a question mark. Why would that happen? I mean, why would we be born with a misaligned atlas? Yeah, and that is what is the case. We are born with that. It's not because of the birth situation that it happens. It is like that even in the womb. So that is a crazy situation. Why would we want to have that happen? And why would we not change that in the course of this generations after generations and generations? Usually you see that if there is a weakness in the system, in the physical system, and this certainly is a weakness, that there would be a change in the DNA structure after a while that would stabilize the situation, and only those beings that would have the stabilized situation would survive. This didn't happen here. Why? That was a question mark for me as well. And then I had the privilege to talk with an avatar about it, and I had some ideas, I had some insights that I had about it, but I could reinform and reconfirm these ideas with an avatar. So a long time ago, we decided to start a process of separating ourselves from the divine source, or the higher self, so to speak, which has been part of the divine plan for our planet for whatever reason. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. And the Atlas region is a very, very good region to disconnect as well as to connect. In the Eastern philosophies, it's called the mouth of God, where all of the life force would enter the system, and also the connection to the divine, the overall divine force would be through this region. So if we help the system to disconnect there by turning the atlas, it would be much easier for us to individualize in the way of feeling ourselves as a separate being, not being connected to one another. And I think this time, this century that we are living in right now, we are fed of that. We don't want to continue like this. And we are in the process of reuniting ourselves with the divine and with one another, which doesn't mean we become like an ocean where we don't feel our individuality anymore. That is not what it means to be connected. We still can have our individuality, and we can still have our individual pathway and our individual destiny to fulfill in this lifetime. And at the same time, we are all connected and we are all one. And that is something that our mind, or let's say our mental mind at least, is not able to really grasp. So this disconnection and the game of separation was much easier for us to play through the disconnection between the atlas and the base of the skull, and the turning of the atlas. And why did the animals follow us? Because they love us so much. So the mammals have the same problem as we have, and even the wild mammals have the same problem. So there, but then there rests the question: why did nature not correct this in a way that it became a stabilized situation? Because it wasn't meant to stay that way. Because now we are going into a new situation, into a new paradigm, into a new age, into a new a way of living and experiencing life, and experiencing one another, and experiencing earth, and experiencing the universe, and experiencing the divine. And we could only do that in total, together with our physical system, if we get a chance to correct this situation now. So there had to be a way to keep this an exception, or something that would not be healthy. And how did that happen? That was another question that I posed to myself. And then I found that there have been little groups of people. I haven't seen them yet. I would be very happy to meet one of them. Or at different points of the world. It must be in Australia, one group, in the Himalayas. That's probably the place where Shambhala is, in the Himalayas. And at different points on this earth plane, where little groups of people are still existing, which originally have their atlas at place and don't need a correction. So these people, plus some of the species of the animals, and guess who they would be from the mammals? Of course, it would have to be the dolphins and the whales. We are not astonished about that, huh? So, and also two other, which you might be a little astonished about, the foxes and the pigs. They're holding space for the atlas at place. So they kept this information for this earth plane. And since everything is connected, even though we didn't experience it that way, there has been a grid of information on this earth plane which kept this to be something that would not be totally healthy. So we will one day change it. And now is the time.
Yes, and in support of that change, you have named your work Dao Tha Soundcodes. Could you please define the Dao Tha and what that means in relationship to this change that we're going through now? Dao Tha.
Yes, Dao is the same term as Tao, which to some people is more known than Dao, which is a term that is used in the old ancient Eastern philosophies as the state of being, in your language, you don't even have the real name for it. In German, there is another word like being and existence, something there in between. It's the basic state of being or existence that is like the base of all life, which would be in connection, in unity, in unification, in oneness, and never has been separated. So this state, and also the path to coming back to that state, would be both would be part of this word Dao Ta. Dao, I'm sorry. Ta, or you would actually say Tha in your language, T-H-A, is part of the word Katara, which is a term of the ancient philosophy of the Jewish background, the Kabbalah. Actually, it's more ancient than the Jewish population is. So this word means the divine that expresses itself through divine light and divine sound. And the Tha is the divine sound in this term. So, of course, this connection would be what we are aiming at and what we are working for when we are using the singing or sound codes. Finding the pathway back to unity, unification, oneness, being through sound.
Beautiful. And thank you. And in addition to working with the physical system, with the Atlas codes, could you describe some of the other systems and energies that the Dao Ta singing codes can help support and open within humans and within our individual systems?
Yes. So these codes from coming from this wording Dao Ta are actually meant to support our system, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, to come back to its unity, to its unification with everything that is. We are all we are wanting, we are feeling that we need to reconnect. I'm not getting the right word. It's no problem. I think you understand what I mean. Getting back unified with everything that is, getting united with, I can just see the birds outside here singing, or playing around, or the trees, or the other humans, our friends, our brothers and sisters, the people around us. We are feeling that we have this need to actually reconnect, and that somehow it's not normal that we are not connected. So our whole physical system and also our energetic system has been aiming towards being disconnected for the last at least 5,000 years, probably even a little more. And it's not only the Atlas region or the coccyx region, which is the other side of our body. It's also our organs, our meridians, our chakras, our glands that could actually connect within our system, that we have an idea that could happen. But also when I walk down the road and I meet a bird, or I meet a dog, or I meet a human, we could communicate through the organs, we could communicate through the meridians, we could certainly communicate through the chakras. But we have forgotten about it. We have closed up because we wanted to play the game of separation. So these codes help us in those different levels of being to reconnect, which also means that we can come back to what I could even call a super functioning, super healthy functioning of the organs, of the glands, of the meridians. Which means that if you would give these codes to a system, it would help the system to come back to a healthy functioning. Which doesn't mean that if I would sing the code for, let's say, the kidneys, and the person has a major kidney concern, that all of a sudden they would be healed. Might be the case, who knows if the divine intervention does so, but that is not the first aim. The first aim is to support the system to reconnect. And when that happens, of course, a healing process would be helped greatly as well and supported. No question.
Could you give maybe a few examples of some of the codes for maybe some of the universal codes that everyone can find on the website and can start to experience by connecting with the website?
Yeah, what I could do, if you would like me to, I could sing some of the codes to you, and when people hear this or see this video, they could close their eyes and they could also experience these codes. And let me explain. I would choose from the different kind of codes that I have available. There is one type of codes that you just mentioned, the universal ones, that would be working on all levels of being in a universal sense. Like, let's say, a state of love, or a state of peace, or a transformation, or anything like that. I would choose the state of love in this case, because that's the universalists amongst all of these. And then there are specific codes that would be for organs, that would be for the vertebrae of the spine, and so on. And then there are some codes that are somehow in between. Like there is a code that I call the decoupling code that would be used for the fascia, where the fascia is glued together or glued to an organ, and all of the tissue can't move anymore, and we get very stiff and get problems in the body. It could also be used on an emotional level when you get stuck in an emotional situation with another person. And it can also be used in any other realm where you feel that there is something glued together or coupled that shouldn't be coupled, that should be existing freely, at one at the side of the other. So I would use these three, and then there is another universalist that you won't find on the website, but if you listen to me carefully, you might even grasp it and get it, and you can sing it along with the sound codes that you would find on the website, which is the conclusion code. And that is important because the energy that comes through sound is coming in waves, and it comes and goes. And we wanted to be able to stay in the system, or in the systems, in all of the layers of our being, until it has done everything it can do for this system. And that's what the conclusion code is for. It asks, and there I have to come back to something that I haven't mentioned yet. It asks the beings that are connected to this work, which I call the sound code beings, who are very strong connected to the higher levels of being. They are somehow connecting the angel world to the fairy world. Yeah. So both of them, they are connected to. Those beings would carry on. They would support the process of these sound codes still working on the system in the capacity that the person that is receiving them is able or willing to let them work for them. So now I will start with the vertebrae code, and you can sit back and just relax and let this code go into your system and do its work for your vertebra of the spine. And then I will not talk in between. That's why I'm explaining right now. Then I would go to the decoupling, and then I would go to the state of love code and to the conclusion. So I'll start now. Oh, ah, 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 va, oh, va, 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 va, oh, va. Ai, oh, 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 Awen, 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 Awen. So I would like to leave the people now with this experience so they can let it go deeper, if that's okay with you.
Sounds great. And if they would like more information, they can go to the website.
Yes, so the website is www.dao-tha.org. Thank you for
Thank you.
listening.
Thank you.